Okay, time for episode number 49 of the Press Box Podcast. And this episode, we're going to touch on football. Now, last episode, we talked about the so-called restart sports. But football doesn't have to restart because they never started. Ever since the coronavirus happened in March, there's been a lot of questions about what will happen with football. And we anticipate, a full schedule here with college and pro, but we'll break that down a little bit in the episode. A lot of moving parts, definitely in college. Football, or NFL football, kind of a little more under one roof, but we'll break down some of the similarities and differences about the seasons going forward and what we expect in terms of fans and games and things like that. But again, before we start, as we always say, check us out on Twitter at PressBoxPod. Looking forward to getting maybe some poll questions about the football season. And if you have any thoughts as well, be sure to leave them on Twitter for us. And with that, let's get into this episode, specifically talking about football on the PressBox Podcast.
Okay, it's time for another episode of the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. My other co-host, Joseph Miranda, will be joining us, and our producer, Nathan, will be chiming in from time to time, looking up stats for us and making his on-the-mark comments. Today, in episode 49, if you're counting along with us, we're going to continue our theme of restarts of sports in the United States. And today, in this episode, we're going to talk exclusively about football. Technically, it's not a restart because they never really started because this all happened in March. But it's a question of whether they're going to start and what it's going to look like. The NFL is one. Let's start with college football before we get to the NFL because that seems to be the one that has so many question marks. So I'll let you start, Joseph.
Yeah, I said from the start, ever since this whole thing started, that college football is much less likely to happen than pro football, okay? Because there's so many factors going on. And you've seen already the Ivy League canceled their fall sports. Not that they're a football powerhouse, but
Nobody's going to miss that.
Right, that's one little pocket of college football that's not happening. You've got maybe another small conference that canceled something.
I think you're right. Right. Patriot Conference.
Yeah, Patriot League. Okay, and then you've also heard some of these major conferences like the Big Ten, I think the Pac-12, canceling non-conference games. So they're only going to play games in their conference. All right, so you've got it's not like the NFL where it's all one league. You've got different conferences and different rules, and you've got the whole thing of our school's going to let the students come and all this stuff. So it's a lot of different things going on, but just kind of the big picture. I think there's going to be a college football season.
I agree.
Like there's too much money involved, especially at the major conferences, not to have some sort of season. It's just a question of how many games and how's it all going to work out?
Right, what does it look like?
Real quick, the ones that cancel completely, like the Ivy League, are they just canceling for this whole calendar year or for this whole year, or are they trying to say they're going to maybe play it in the spring?
No, they're canceling. They're not going to play football again until next fall. Right. But remember, the Ivy League they don't give scholarships. They don't give athletic scholarships. So those players can leave anytime they want if they want to or whatever. Yeah. So it's not really a big deal with the Ivy League. But going back to what you said about college football, I think it'll look somewhat different than what we're used to seeing. And what I mean by that is, first of all, let me step back. This conference, non-conference thing is bogus, okay? Because let's take the Big Ten. They're the first to say conference games only. Well, in case anybody didn't realize, Nebraska's in the Big Ten, okay? Well, if you're Michigan, you're going to have to travel all the way to Nebraska, but you can't play Notre Dame. It's like 2 hours down the road. Yeah. Okay, so that doesn't hold water in my book. All right. Second thing is, probably you're not going to see a lot of these early season games, these kickoff classics in August 29th and all that stuff because it's too soon and they won't have anything figured out. So I think what they'll end up doing is playing maybe 8, maybe 10 games instead of 12, okay? Maybe most of your conference games and maybe one non-conference game. They may start late, maybe mid-September, something like that. And I think Nathan was talking about this earlier when we were discussing it, is, you have about, a month off between the end of the season and the bowl game. Joseph, okay. So you could figure that time in and play some games there too.
You can finish everything like you at the same time you would always finish it,
yes,
but start it later.
Yes,
easily.
You could easily do that. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think some games will get canceled. Now, the teams that this is going to hurt are, you take some of the 1AA teams, all right, what they call now the
FCS.
Yeah, FCS now is what they call it. Some of these teams that were supposed to go to Michigan or go to Tennessee or go to Georgia or whatever, they were looking at a $2.5-3 million payday for that game. Well, if they're not allowed to play that game, that's going to significantly hurt not only their athletic department, but their university as well. Yeah. So that's where I think you're going to have some ongoing problems in college football. Some of these teams are going to end up either dropping football, but definitely dropping some other sports because of that. But
some have already started to drop, you said, right?
Some of them have already started.
What school was a big one? USC or no? Somebody?
Yeah, I don't think it was USC, but I think there was some big ones that have dropped some of the non-revenue sports is what they'll end up dropping.
Stanford said they're going to drop stuff.
Yeah, they
did.
Stanford.
But yeah, I mean, so far, like you said, it's only been the Big Ten and the Pac-12 that have definitely said that.
Right.
You think everybody's going to do it?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably. I think the SEC goes to an all-conference schedule, maybe. The thing I did want to bring up, and you can talk about this, is Notre Dame.
Right.
Not in a conference.
I saw some pretty funny memes online of people saying, if
if
everybody goes to conference, was left out.
But they do have they've had an agreement with the ACC. So what do you think happens there? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, well, what I've been researching, what I found on that is that Notre Dame obviously has this agreement with the ACC. Notre Dame is in the ACC for every sport except football. All right. So they've got 6 ACC games this year on a regularly played schedule. And I think they'll work out an agreement with the ACC. If the ACC goes to a conference only, where Notre Dame will jump in and play maybe 9 ACC games this year, okay? Just like everybody else in the ACC will. And then they'll play 2 non-conference or 3 non-conference games. Well, 3 other games. Navy, probably a Western Michigan, who I think is already on their schedule. And right now, Arkansas, unless the SEC decides not to play. I read something this morning that said that it's possible that Notre Dame might play Alabama to open the season in one of these games in Atlanta. All right.
Why?
Because if you look at their schedule, they have it up. They already took off Stanford and USC because the Pac-12 decided.
Yes, it's canceled.
Yeah.
So to replace one of those games, but then again, that's contingent on the SEC deciding whether they're going to.
And they cancel Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think Arkansas will probably fall off the schedule because I think the SEC will probably go to some semblance of a conference-only schedule as well. So Notre Dame will have 4 slots to fill. They'll fill 2 of those, or maybe 3 of those, with ACC games, and then 1 with some other team.
Well, Army or Navy.
They don't really play Army much anymore, but Navy, they'll definitely play Navy. And
September 5th. Think they'll have it on the same day?
I don't know if they're going to have it on the same day or not. I haven't heard yet if they're going to open the season with Navy.
They don't have any one of those games that they play in Ireland this year, Notre Dame?
Well, they were supposed to open with Navy in Ireland.
Yeah.
But
they moved the location.
Yeah, they moved it to the Naval Academy, which will be neat. It's the first time Notre Dame and Navy have ever played at the Naval Academy.
Ever?
Yeah. Because they've always played either in Yankee Stadium or one of the major stadiums.
Even back in the 30s.
Yeah, because more people can come. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Do you think they'll still have, let's say the SEC goes, whether or not, well, I guess either way, whether they go to only conference or not, are they going to still have the SEC championship game? Right, they would have to.
It would have to, yeah. That's not going to be effective, right?
I mean, what's usually in Atlanta, you think they'll go play at one of their home stadiums?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because you'd have 2 teams converging from different areas.
But that SEC championship game would be after those certain events that Joseph talked about on the last podcast. So I think
I could see a scenario where for the college football playoff, fans are allowed.
Right.
Let's put it that way. And for the championship games.
Well, maybe or maybe not.
But anyway, to wrap up our discussion about Notre Dame, I really don't think they're going to be affected or left out like most people think they're going to be. No. The ACC the ACC makes enough money from Notre Dame with these other sports that they'll work out a deal with Notre Dame where they'll be considered part of the conference for the games this year.
Are there any teams that are independent that aren't as popular or don't have a deal like
Service Academy?
Service Academy. Well, actually, Navy's the only one. I think the Air Force is in the Mountain West Conference.
Army's in something. I don't know that.
I'm not sure.
Okay, let's look at Navy then. Let's say they play Notre Dame.
Right, they will.
You think they don't have a deal like that with anybody else, dude, like Notre Dame does? So are they going to be able to be merged into another conference?
I don't know. It seems to me like there's not many. Navy might even be in one of these conferences too. I don't know. You can just type in, Nathan, if you don't mind. See if you can find out how many independent teams are there in Division I college football.
Let me look at the first.
I think there's only like 3 or 4 now.
Yeah.
Let me look at the first thing.
Which one?
The Navy question?
Yeah. It should list if they're in a conference.
See, they're a non-football member of the Patriot League. So not in football, I guess.
Okay, so they're independent football.
Yeah,
okay.
but let's see.
See, they're going to suffer a little bit from that because,
Let's see, now all independent teams in NCAA. Division I.
Yeah.
FBS independent schools. Wikipedia. Trust me.
Really good.
Let's see. You have United States Army.
Right, Army.
BYU.
Really? BYU's independent? Interesting. Sure. I thought they were in the Mountain West, too.
FBS independent. BYU. Primary conference. I don't know what that means. Is the West Coast conference? Maybe that means like outside of football.
Okay.
Liberty University.
Right. Yeah, they don't factor in.
New Mexico State University.
Okay.
Notre Dame.
Right.
UConn.
Right.
And UMass.
Okay. Interesting.
It says Notre Dame remains officially independent and is not a member of the ACC in any capacity for football. Just they talk about what you talked about.
Right.
Let me see this BYU though. During the conference realignment that saw the university choose football independence in August 2010, some saw BYU as a potential future Notre Dame of the West.
Okay.
So during the realignment,
Notre Dame of the West.
Okay, the Notre Dame of the West. All right. But anyway, I think that's what'll happen with Notre Dame. They'll have a schedule, and I think Navy will end up obviously playing the other service academies, and they'll work out some deal where they get however many games they want to get.
Yeah.
For them.
Army Navy's still going to happen, probably.
Probably. I mean, because that's December 8th or
Yeah.
December whatever it is. But yeah, I agree. I think college, and again, I go back to what we talked a little bit about last episode was that there's too much money involved in this for them not to have it some kind of season. All right, the NCAA and the universities have already lost millions of dollars because of the cancellation of conference basketball tournaments and the March Madness tournament. They can't afford to cancel college football.
Yeah,
I mean they just can't.
I saw something today that. It said that SEC players that don't want to play this season are still going to keep their scholarship and they can take it a redshirt year or whatever, which is fine, which means you should play football.
That's right.
I mean, you should have. I'm against. We talked about the bogusness of the non-conference thing.
Right.
It's a regular schedule, but if a player doesn't want to play, fine.
Right.
For this year, you can take a red shirt or not count against you. Keep your scholarship, whatever. But other than that, you need to play.
Right. Well, but again, I mean, it's a touchy subject because depending upon what you believe or don't believe, everybody's going to have their own opinion. So I mean, I think they're doing the right thing. You test everybody. I mean, it's the same thing. I've talked to other coaches who've told me the same thing that if a player tests positive for the flu, you quarantine that player and you quarantine anybody that's been in touch with because you don't want the flu to run through your locker room and have 50 guys sick with the flu. So it's the same thing here. If you test everybody, okay, if somebody's test positive, you quarantine him. Get him out of the locker room.
Last thing before we move to the NFL is the fans thing for college, okay? Which
that I think is going to affect.
It'll be huge.
Yeah, I was going to say I think we're us three in agreement or anyway that we prefer the NFL over college football, right? A lot of people prefer college football, and the big thing about that is the fan environment, and the tailgating, and the game day. And
each state has their own little unique atmosphere.
Right, that's going to definitely affect the feel of the game, right?
Definitely. I agree with that. I mean, I think it's going to affect it.
Every team has their own little traditions they do, like in the stands, like it'd just be...
And that's another thing where there's not really one... I guess the NCAA is a governing body, but not the same as a pro league.
Right.
I mean, obviously, USC is probably not going to have fans at their games, but Alabama might.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know how it's going to
work. I don't know how it's going to work either.
Yeah. And here's another thing. I mean, you really won't need cheerleaders. Whose cheers are they going to lead?
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of USC, you're going to have to travel to an away game maybe to watch them play. They going to let you into the stadium if you come from a state?
I don't know. Well, we don't even know if California is going to allow them to play football yet. Do we? I mean, they've locked everything down again in California. So I don't know.
No, I think they locked down like restaurants.
All right.
Did they send? Okay.
Because otherwise, why would the Angels or Dodgers be able to play? And they're allowed to play.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah.
It's like a modified lockdown.
Well, and another problem with college
school
football,
thing too.
The school thing,
That's what
right?
you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean that's a big problem. Is that how are you actually in a way though, in a weird sort of way, if you don't allow kids, normal students on campus, it's actually better because then it almost becomes like a bubble NBA, right? You keep your players in one area, but see what they don't want to have the players. The NCAA is so concerned about making them student athletes that it'll look like they're professional, right? They're only on campus to play football, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that would be an interesting...
Take online classes, though.
They could take online classes. In fact, that'd be safer.
That's what they're going to do.
It'd be safer.
That's what everybody's going to do. No school is canceling school.
No.
I mean, they're canceling
no university.
School,
right.
But imagine, I know what you mean. There's already people saying, like, these athletes at these schools don't really go to class. They don't have to, imagine if they have to take online class. How many of you guys are going to log onto their computer and take all their class?
Right.
Online.
Yeah, I can see Nick Saban standing. All right, remember, guys, get online tonight.
Yeah.
But let's say, okay, so if a school says, if the university says no one can come, it's all going to be online this year. You don't have an option.
Right.
They can still obviously have the players be on campus and play football.
Yes, right. They could.
But if a school says no one's probably going to do this, but if for whatever reason the school were to say we're canceling classes, can they still allow a football season?
Yeah, that I don't know, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the schools are canceling classes, But I think, somebody told me this is interesting here too. Somebody told me, I forget who it was. It was somebody I ran into either at a store or anyway, it doesn't matter. Their daughter is a student at East Tennessee State up in right. They're only having online classes this fall, but she had to go up. They're requiring all the students to come to the dorm, stay in the dorms.
What?
Yeah, that's what she said. So in other words, you're going to be in your dorms taking online classes, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm wondering if other universities are going to do the same thing, because in other words, they could, I guess theoretically, they could test that dorm and make sure everybody's okay. See, they want the kids on campus because they figure they could monitor their progress, and if a professor has to get in touch with them or whatever. And
they can charge room and board, and they don't have to make an excuse
exactly,
for it.
Exactly. So they may be doing that at some of these bigger universities, which, to me, solves the issue of your players, right?
But then you're going to have to, I don't know what would say, is it ETSU? No,
I think it was ETSU.
I don't know what their environment's like, but a lot of these smaller schools, a lot of people, like, if they don't commute, they might spend a lot of time at home. Like they might go home for a weekend.
Right.
Are they going to have them like truly quarantined where they can't leave campus?
I don't know.
Are they going to allow them to go off campus and come back on
I don't
campus?
know. I don't know about all the procedures. I'm just saying.
I'm glad I'm out of school.
Well, same with, let's say they have a thing where the football players are on campus and the only ones on campus. Are they going to be allowed to leave the campus and like go get takeout somewhere?
They shouldn't be. I mean, if you're so worried about catching a virus, you shouldn't be. It should be like a bubble, just like the NBA.
They have the cafeteria for all the.
They got everything. Yeah, they don't need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This actually would have been a better if they wouldn't have changed the rule about. It's been about 10 years now, maybe more. Remember, there used to be athletic dorms. Now they don't have those anymore. Yeah. Oh yeah, there used to be dorms just for the athletes, and now Notre Dame never had that, but every other school had it. Like they had a special dorm.
You had to stay in there. Or you could if you.
You had to stay there. But now, but the NCAA, they ruled that whatever it was, they wanted to integrate the students in there. So now they're all spread over, which now you've got a problem, So anyway, besides the point.
All right, well, let's switch gears here to the NFL, which is an entirely different circumstance. You have players that are professionals.
Right.
You have a more governing body union, NFL. Okay, so a lot less moving parts than college.
Right.
Well, what's your initial thoughts on the NFL here? They came out today, or I saw a press release today that training camp's starting on time.
Yes.
They put out some dates like rookies.
I heard the Chiefs told their rookies, be on time. We're reporting this date. Be ready to go.
Injured players and veterans or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's July 28th. We're starting on time as of now. Yeah.
I also saw a commercial today from NBC promoting the first Thursday night game, Chiefs and the Texans. Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to have football. Now, Are there going to be bumps along the road? Probably. I mean, I guarantee you within 1 week of camps being open, you're going to hear, oh, the Chiefs had 4 players test positive. I mean, those things are going to happen, okay? But and then you're going to have the fan thing. I mean, what are they going to decide with fans, okay? I mean, I think I told you the other day, I heard that the city of Philadelphia, has said they're not allowing fans in the stadium for Eagles games, which I told you I heard one announcer say that's pretty bogus when you consider that the Philadelphia fans are the ones who threw snowballs at Santa Claus. I mean, they're not afraid of anything, But still, you're going to have probably NFL games without fans in some cases.
That's the thing. Is the NFL going to say that, or is it going to be up to each city?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably, it sounds like it's going to be up to each city.
But
I would imagine.
the city can override the NFL, though, obviously. If the NFL says the fans are allowed, each city can say, well, we don't want them.
All right, well, then
I guess.
Florida just let Disney World open, so why wouldn't they let the Buccaneers fill the stadium?
They may. I don't know that. I mean, I haven't. The Eagles are the only ones I've heard make a comment. Yeah. Philadelphia's the only one that made a comment yet. So,
I heard the same for the Phillies, right? I heard that too.
Yeah, the Phillies too. But my point is, I don't know how it's going to play itself out with fans. But I think the NFL, to me anyway, is probably going to be the most complete season of any of the ones we've been talking about.
I don't see any major hiccups that it's going to affect it. Now, 2 preseason games have been canceled, definitely.
Yeah.
Did we hear anything definitive on the other 2?
Not
I think
yet.
the Players Union
wants to cancel them, right?
All of them?
All 4 of them.
Well, the last 2. They've already canceled 2 of the NFL.
Yeah. I don't know.
They can expand the rosters then?
I haven't heard if they're going to. I thought I heard where they're going to expand it, but I haven't.
Confirm that. The whole push to 18 games eventually, the NFL, they really only want 2 preseason games going forward, I think. Right. That's part of the 18-game deal. But, I think I'm not a player, obviously, or especially a veteran player, but I think you still need 2, at least 2. I mean, think about these rookies like Joe Burrow for the Bengals. He's going to need some snaps before he gets under the.
That's going to be great.
He's probably going to be the starter for the Bengals. They have nobody.
Watching him week 1, the first time he has any NFL experience.
Yeah, so, I mean, and you got other rookies, too, and you've got, I don't know, you can talk to it more than me, Nathan, but even if you're a veteran guy, maybe you're 2 or 3 years in the league, you like to have some live action for you step in there week 1,
You definitely, you definitely like to have it.
Yeah.
Now, you can argue, is it needed? I don't know, but if you're the player, I think they would definitely want at least a little bit.
Well, I think they have to have. I think they'll probably play at least 2. They'll probably play those 2 preseason games because you gotta, like you said, you gotta have the ability 1 to get some live snaps in, 2 to let your rookies get some live snaps in so they can feel what it's like as well. And then you also have to have the ability to evaluate players. I mean, unless they expand the rosters from 53 to 65 or something, where you can keep guys.
I don't think they're going to do that because then you're paying more guys.
That's right. So you've got to be able to evaluate players. Otherwise,
don't the cut dates typically coincide with like after the Monday after a preseason game? They have the cut.
Well, they changed that a couple years ago. They used to have multiple cuts after, but now a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, they changed it where you can keep 90 guys in until the very end.
You can just have one true cut.
One true cut. That's right. You can cut them before that, but you're not required to.
They used to have different ones you had to get.
They did, but they don't have that anymore. So now you can keep as many as you want. I think up to 90 is what you're allowed to. But
why don't they just have? But you think it's either they canceled the last 2 or they have, and there's no maybe they just have 1.
That could be. I think a lot of that's going to be predicated on what happens when the camps open. Like I said, if all of a sudden 10 players test positive on one team, they may decide, look, maybe we better not have these preseason games.
Didn't they already say there's no joint practices allowed?
Yeah, they've already canceled that. No,
which is a big thing.
No joint. The Patriots can't go down to Miami or go down somewhere else and that sort of thing. So that's out.
The coaches are in favor of preseason games.
Sure they are.
For all the reasons we just mentioned.
Sure
so I think they probably end up playing 2. I just think it happens.
I think they will.
Yeah. Maybe they change the schedule a little bit. Like you play the teams closest to you.
Yeah, you can mess with that all you want in the preseason.
Right.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Maybe the Giants play the Jets and the Bills.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but
that you can fix pretty easy. That's not a problem.
And then, another thing as far as the fans, which me and Nathan noticed this watching a Serie A game, right, where pumped crowd noise for the TV broadcast.
Right. Is that for sure what they were doing? It wasn't in the stadium.
I think. Of course, we don't know, we weren't there, but I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that would accomplish in the stadium, but which
in Serie A was one that they made. One of them they made it look like they used visual effects to make it look like they were fans in the seats too. But continue.
Yeah. Well,
the sound was a big thing,
right? Which. I mean, I couldn't really tell that much of a difference. It seemed pretty legit.
Real,
and I think you said they had a switchboard guy where, like, if there's a shot on goal, they'd ramp it up where the fans are like,
I'm sure they had a pre-recorded thing where they knew if they made a goal, they probably had a little switchboard they raised the crowd.
So I think that if, like the Eagles go through this no fans thing and you're watching the game in Philadelphia, I think it'll be pretty seamless. You'll feel like there's fans there until you see the shots of the stadium, you know. But
I
think that can work.
If they use the crowd noise for the television broadcast, it's going to feel like a regular game.
Yeah.
Let me throw something out here along the same lines as fans and get your guys' reaction to it. I think the no fans in the stadiums in an NFL game are going to benefit the kickers more than anybody else. Yeah. All right, because think about a regular NFL game. Your team's trying to get in the playoffs, right? There's 2 seconds on the clock, and you have to make a field goal from 48 yards to win the game. And the fans are screaming and hollering and the pressure. Yeah, but there's nobody in the stands. It's just a regular kick, right? You just make the kick.
Nathan brought up a good point too about home field advantage. Like, you think of some stadiums like the Chiefs and the Seahawks,
and there's not going to be home field advantage anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. If they, that's why I was questioning. I wonder if they're going to try to pump the noise into the stadium because I feel like you would want to because if you're like the Chiefs or the Seahawks. And you do that when the opposing team's on offense, you can pump it in louder or whatever your statement.
I don't know how that works, but can they even replicate something that loud?
I don't think they can. I think it's pretty.
You
have to do it indoors.
Well, I was just I know they use that in practice, but it's not to that level.
No.
You'd have to get like 110 decibels. Yeah, that's a good point.
But again, whether
at least we don't have to hear it now. The ABC Seahawks game. The 12th man. There's no 12th man.
There's no 12th man now.
Whatever they do with the fans, I could also see a scenario where fans are allowed in the playoffs. Let's put it that way.
I agree.
I can see that as well, yeah.
I think the more you mention that, I think that seems like a thing they would do. Imagine like how much of a buzz that would have. Forget the timeline of the dates, but imagine how much of a buzz that would be too. Like, January 1st, the playoffs begin. Fans allowed. Like, it's going to be a huge event. It's going to be packed. Tickets going to be through the roof.
Very, very hard to believe they're going to play an empty Super Bowl. Very, very hard.
No, they're not going to play.
And it's in Tampa, so Florida's pretty...
Yeah, and it's February something.
And if you do that, you might as well play the playoff games.
Right. No,
baseball, too. It would be such a big event that you can play up. First games with fans. Yeah. Baseball playoffs.
Let me just put it this way. I think your NBA Finals and your World Series, there's a good probability they'll be played without fans. Yeah. Anything that happens after November probably will be fans.
I still think the World Series is probably happen.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think because the NFL playoffs are 2021. There's no, so you just like you said, build it up to a new year, new playoff fans, whatever.
But that's another thing is you have. If you try to do the whole, there's more games than will be playoffs. So because it's a series, so that'd be tough too, I guess.
Well, let me ask you this question: do you think we talked a little bit about the quality of baseball? Do you think the fact that there's been no off-season activity camps for the NFL, so there's been none of the camps that they would normally have for rookies and all that stuff, and your preseason games are obviously going to be cut in half, maybe more. Do you think that the play will be affected early on in the season at all? Because remember, a lot of veterans change teams too and have to learn new systems and stuff.
Not really. I don't know especially the OTAs in the summer. Like,
well, the playbook, I guess, is the.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's one thing to get a playbook and like read it. It's another thing to like get on the field and go through practice and go through it. Right. But and like you said, that sounds like it'd only be a rookie issue, but the veterans changing teams would be an issue. I think if it's if there's an effect of it, though, it's not gonna be noticeable to the viewer. Right. Like, you might see a bad play, but you'll just be like, oh, he missed that block. Right. The reason may be because he didn't quite know the playbook as well as he typically should or would, but it would just look like a typical play. I think,
that's probably true. Yeah.
People are going to be like throwing balls into the ground and stuff.
Like a certain quarterback.
Like running backs are going to be pulled up with hamstrings and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I mean, your average fan. Your average fan's not going to notice poor quality as much as football as other sports.
That's true too. Yeah.
Baseball, if a pitcher comes down and walks 3 guys in a row, like obviously, what's he doing? Or basketball, the guy's 0 for 7 from the field. Yeah. Football, if a guy misses a block here and there, they're not going to really notice it.
That's true. Yeah.
Especially if he misses an assignment, like if the linebacker fills the wrong gap,
right?
Who's going to notice that?
Right.
Or if a receiver runs it an in instead of an out, like no one's going to.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. Most fans, I'll say fans. I think it probably applies more to men than it does to women, but I'll say most fans. Most fans think they know something about baseball. Yeah. You know what I mean? But they really don't know anything about football. They just like to cheer and scream for it, So you're right. When a player makes a mistake, they don't really know what they're doing,
But do they think they know something? You said most fans think they know something about baseball.
Yeah, I think they admit they don't know anything about football. They don't act like they do. But it's like dads who try to coach. They think they know everything about baseball, right? I mean, but they don't really know anything about football, so they don't coach it. They just stand on the sideline.
That's a good point. Because there's more like strategy, perceived strategy in football, like plays and things. Baseball, you just play.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's interesting. But I think I'm looking forward to. I think again, like I said on the last episode, we need football. More, I think we need football. Of course, I'm biased, but I think we need football more than we need any other sport. And
I agree.
Even the coach of LSU, which Ed Orgeron, which I'm not a big fan of Ed Orgeron, but I think the guy said it exactly right. Vice President Pence went down there to Louisiana, and Ed Orgeron told him and said, "We need to play football." He said, "College football is a part of the American fabric," and he's right. I mean, we got to have football. I mean, that's. I think a lot of fans and even people in this country have been going along here the last 4. Okay, baseball's not starting. But it's like, here comes football. They're waiting for football to start, NFL and college.
I know this is kind of, you're not going to have to choose, but based on what you just said, what do you think is a more important thing that they have to play, pro or college?
Well, pro. As much as we love, wait a minute. As much as we love pro, I think college is more important to the fabric of America.
Of the communities and everything.
Yeah, I really believe Nathan's right about that. I think,
as much as I hate
I think he's right. We may not agree with it, but I think taking that away from America would be worse than the NFL because you know what I mean. The NFL is not really a community type deal.
If you take the Giants, well, I'll try to use the same season. If you take the Titans their season away, what does that do to Nashville in the state? Now imagine taking away UT football. It's more like embedded in the whole, because not everybody in Tennessee either cares about professional football or cares about the Titans, but everyone's probably going to care about UT football and SEC football.
That's true.
I don't know. I'm thinking more of, I guess because we like it, but even a typical NFL Sunday, you've got all the games in one day. It's a big event. You've got fantasy football. You've got gambling. You've got
that's not big.
You got a lot of that with college too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Think about just think about the people that you come into contact with on a daily basis, or you have recently. Are those people going to be more interested in watching pro or college football? Typically, college, right?
And you brought up a good point about the gambling. I mean, we've both been to Las Vegas and the sports books. Think about how much they need football this fall. I mean, the amount of money that's bet on those games.
They probably get more. They probably get more money coming in at cause of it, right? Because there's more games.
More games, yeah.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, there's more games.
But I think both of them are equally important. They're both important, but I think college has more effect on the psyche of America. Let me put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe not the money part.
But I think we're all in agreement they're both going to happen.
I think so.
I think the NFL goes off without a hitch in terms of schedule.
I think so. Yes.
College football, as we said, there may be some tweaks here and there.
Right.
But I think they both ultimately happen.
Wouldn't it be ironic, though? I'll end my part of this. Wouldn't it be ironic if Notre Dame ends up playing mostly ACC games and they give them a 1-year waiver that they qualify for the ACC title and they win the ACC title and get into the college football playoff via that? Boy, that would throw these pundits in an uproar, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But
do you think I don't know why they've been playing almost an ACC schedule anyways, right?
They have, yeah.
I was going to say if they kind of accept them into the conference more wholly this season, like entirely,
right?
Do you think that that may spark something like, hey, like maybe we should just be part of it? And do you think like next year they're actually?
No, I don't think they're ever.
They'll just go right back to what they were.
Notre Dame's never going to be.
If they wanted to be in a conference, they would.
Do you think the ACC would gladly take them though?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Oh yeah, the ACC would take them.
Notre Dame just doesn't want to.
Yeah, Notre Dame's not going to because they don't need to because they make so much money.
Yeah.
See,
so that won't change anything.
No, I don't think it will. I really don't think it will. I mean, the only thing that it could help Notre Dame is you get that quote unquote automatic bid, if you would, into a playoff because you get to play in a conference championship game.
Are we sure that they're going to have those abilities this season if they have that? Because couldn't they say we'll welcome you into our conference this year?
We don't know. We don't know that. I'm just saying I read where it's possible they may give them that option this year. Yeah, but it may not happen.
Plus, I think geographically it makes sense for them to join the Big Ten if they're going to join a conference.
It does. Yeah, no question it does. Yeah.
I'm surprised. Do you remember why they chose the ACC? Or what
probably because the ACC agreed to have an agreement without being in the conference. A lot of conferences may not go for that.
Probably.
Plus, they're in ACC for everything else.
Right.
Basketball, baseball, football.
Have they always been in the ACC for everything else? And then,
no, they used to be in the Big East for
that's
a
right.
long time.
Didn't that disband or
whatever?
No Big East football.
They don't have
football. Never was football.
They had the basketball thing kind of splittered, I think, the Big East.
Something happened there. I don't know. Exactly.
Well, there used to be a football Big East, too.
It did.
Yeah, Miami used to be there.
Yeah, that's what went apart. The basketball
Big East is still
around.
Yeah. Last thing I was going to say is, let's say they start off college or NFL, just football, and no fans are allowed in the games. Are they going to have the? This doesn't matter. Are they going to have the announcers next to each other in the booth? Are they going to have to call in from their homes to announce games?
Yeah, they'll have announcers.
Like Saturday Night Football.
Yeah, they're going to have announcers.
Michaels.
They'll have to be at the game, don't they? Yeah.
I would think, but okay.
Yeah, they have to
definitely be there.
Yeah. Sit next to each
They
other.
can sit 6 feet apart.
Well, they'll do something. They'll figure out something.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Let me answer your question. They'll create something to give you the image that they're not right next to each other.
Just like,
but they're going to be in the booth.
Yeah, they'll be up there. Yeah, they got to be.
Football, you could argue most people say it's the best TV sport there is. So they're going to have the TV production on point. Yeah.
Plus, you remember, you got to have the ability, if you're an analyst, it's not like golf where you can watch it on TV, like, what's his name? Nick Faldo's in Orlando watching the golf thing. But, if you're the analyst, you got to have the monitor and the replay and all that stuff to be able to.
That's not a question.
Yeah, so I think
I'm sure they could set that up at home.
Yeah, they could, but all right. So that's we'll convene again here in a few more weeks for our anniversary episode, our gold anniversary 50th episode. Pretty soon, next one will be 50. So
so look for that coming soon. We apologize to our Canadian listeners not touching on hockey, but that will be restarting as well.
That's right. That's right.
We'll see. We may mention that next time when we see how that kind of kicks off here, but.
It's not just Canadian people who like hockey.
That's true.
We apologize to all of our listeners.
That's right.
Sure.
Because we do have listeners as far as Moscow. I mean, Russia, don't we? We have some Russian listeners.
I'm not sure if we have Russian.
I think we have some far out listeners.
We do have some far out. I don't know if that was
previous guest Phil Elaine in Sweden.
That's right. Sweden,
Ukraine. We're Pressbox Podcast International. So before we leave here, again, we'll always remind you to check us out on Twitter at PressboxPod. We'll be tweeting about these episodes. Feel free to leave us some comments about what you think about both football seasons here. And like we said, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and we're looking forward to getting football, going again. So, for Ralph, this is Joseph, and for our producer Nathan, signing off on this episode of the Pressbox Podcast.